Hi, welcome to my channel, Math Made Easy with Laurel. I'm Laurel, and in this video we're going to take a look at how we change fractions into decimals. The process for changing a fraction into a decimal is simply divide the numerator by the denominator. So if we take a look at our first example, you may recognize right away that 1/2 is 0.5. If you didn't, then you would just divide. So you would divide 2 into 1. 2 doesn't go into 1, so we need to put a decimal point and start going past the decimal point with our zeros. So 2 doesn't go into 1, we put a 0 here, and we put a decimal point. Then we can see that 2 goes into 10 5 times. So 2 times 5 is 10, we subtract, we get a 0. When we get a 0 and we don't have any other digits to bring down, we know that we're done. So 1/2 is equal to 0.5. We do the same thing with the next example. We divide 3 by 4. 4 doesn't go into 3, so we need our decimal point. We put a 0 and then our decimal point. And then we can have as many zeros after our decimal point as necessary. So then we look at 4 doesn't go into 3, but 4 goes into 30 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. We subtract 30, subtract 28 is 2. Bring down the next digit, a 0. 4 divides into 20. 5 times 4 times 5 is 20. And we don't have any other digits, so we're done. So 3/4 is equal to 0.75. 7/8, same process. Eight doesn't go into 7, so we have a 0. We can put as many zeros after the decimal point as we need. We will see as we get going. 8 doesn't go into 7. 8 goes into 70 8 times. 8 times 8 is 64. We subtract and we get 6. Bring down a 0. 8 goes into 67 times. 7 times 8 is 56. We subtract. Bring down my next 0. 8 goes into 40 5 times. 5 times 8 is 40. Subtract 0, and we're done. So 7/8 will be equal to 0.875. Let's try a few more examples. If you have a whole number part and then a fraction, just leave the whole number part outside. So it's going to be 2 point something, and just find what this is equal to as a decimal. So 200 divides into 1. How many times? So we need our decimal point. 200 does not divide into 1. 200 does not divide into 10. 200 does not divide into 100. 200 divides into 1,000 5 times. 5 times 200 is 1,000, and we're done. So we could express this as 2.005. Another thing that you could do, if you were so inclined, is you could change this to how many hundredths, because in this case, you could multiply numerator and denominator by 4. So we get 16 100ths, and once it's over a multiple of 10, then it's very easy to change it to a decimal. That would be equal to 0.16. But the other option is always divide. So we could divide 25 into 4. 25 doesn't go into 4. 25 goes into 40 one time. 1 times 25 is 25. Subtract 15 and bring down the next digit, 0. 25 goes into 150 6 times. And we're done. So we get 0.16. So we could either change this to a decimal by thinking what this fraction would be equal to as an equivalent fraction with 100 as the denominator, or we could do the division. Often you'll end up with fractions that don't work out to even decimals, such as 1/3. So when you do the division, in this case, 3 doesn't go into 1. 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. We subtract. 3 goes into 10 3 times. 9. We subtract. And so on. We're going to continue. It's going to be equal to 0.3333 repeating, which we can express as 0.3 with a dot on top to represent that that digit repeats. Or we could round it off to the nearest tenth, or we could round it off to the nearest 100th, or we could round it off to the nearest thousandth. It just depends on what you're expected to do. So basically, to change a fraction to a decimal, you simply divide the numerator by the denominator. Make sure you have an opportunity to practice these.